Hello, and welcome to the Rankin Report for Sunday, August the 3rd, 2025. Thank you for joining me today. From Psalm 100, from Psalm 100, verse 4. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. And then from Romans chapter 1, verse 20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. God first revealed himself through his creation, nature itself. Therefore, since God's creation endures, his wonders are to be remembered. It is part of God reaching out to the pinnacle of his creation, that is mankind, the one part of creation that was made to have a connection or a relationship with him. Nature itself, as we understand it, is evidence of his existence. Indeed, we are part of that. This is not part of any of the covenants that God made with mankind in the sense of, you do this and I will do this. This is more like what I would call a proto-covenant, a primitive or early stage agreement, a foretaste of things to come. For since creation and long before the first stated covenant was made by God with Noah, you can find this in Genesis chapter 8 verse 20 through chapter 9 verse 17. People sought out God, Genesis chapter 4:26, because the evidence of him was right before their eyes. While Adam, Eve, and Cain had direct interaction with God, speaking directly with him, all others until Noah were likely more indirect, and I need to research this a bit more. But the evidence of his creation was already there, which was clear and unmistakable. Because of this, when people conclude and teach that all things came or developed from unknown sources that exclude God from the picture, John Haldane's and Alexander Oparin's primordial soup theory is one you may have heard of that was actually experimented with in the Miller-Urey experiment. What is taught is not merely error, but rebellion. The great diversity of life on Earth is his fingerprint, his DNA, as it were. If you've ever studied forensic science, you might be familiar with a fellow named Edmond Locard, a French scientist who developed the exchange principle that now bears his name. To put the principle simply, every contact leaves a trace. Any contact between two objects causes an exchange of material between them. For example, if I pick up this fork, I leave a fingerprint and possibly maybe one or two dead skin cells. There might be a trace of atoms of metal from the fork going onto my finger, but it would only be trace material. It not very much. Another example would be a collision between two cars that leave crumple damage and an exchange of automotive paint between them that would match the other's vehicle. Now, while this principle often deals in microscopic or very tiny bits of evidence left at the scene of an accident or a crime, God also deals in the macroscopic transfer of his contact with us, things large enough for anyone to see. For example, the fact that genetic transfer takes place through DNA, which is found in every living thing. Every living thing. There are no alternative genetic transfer processes different from DNA in existence on Earth that developed separately from DNA. So, either through unconscious ignorance, no one ever thought of that before, or conscious denial, not remembering God in any area of life, human or otherwise, violates the proto-covenant. The concept of science and faith being two separate tracks which never meet is a relatively recent one. It began to emerge as supposedly enlightened scientists began to feel themselves free of what they saw as the restrictions of faith, as opposed to those who saw faith as a lamp to their feet and a light to their path, as recorded in Psalm 119, verse 105. But many famous scientists throughout history identified themselves as Christians. Astronomers Galileo Galilei and Johannes Kepler, monk and early geneticist Gregor Mendel, Sir Isaac Newton, who did just about everything, George Washington Carver, Francis Collins, a former atheist who led the Human Genome Project, astrophysicist Jocelyn Bell Burnell, and others. Some of these openly credited their faith for what they discovered, while others simply cited it as inspiration. But the key is that the two are far from mutually exclusive. And even Albert Einstein, who kept his distance from any organized religion, once said, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind." In 1957, Bell Labs and director Frank Capra collaborated on a series of science films for television. Using live action and animation, the series was primarily targeted at children and young people, but its audience included adults as well. The second of these productions was called Hemo the Magnificent, and it was about blood and circulation. In fact, the reason why adults could pick this particular one up as well was because the stations put it on late in the evening because of all the film footage of hearts beating and all that sort of things. It was considered too adult for earlier hours. I've spoken of this film once before. I saw it when I was in the 5th grade when it ended its broadcast run and copies were distributed to schools. I own a copy of it on DVD now, and I ran it for my own students. I guess you could say it influenced me toward science. In the film, a quote by German physicist Max Planck was used, where he said that over the gates to the temple of science must be inscribed the words, "Ye must have faith." This was contrasted with the Apostle Paul's teaching to the Corinthian church to prove all things, hold fast to that which is good, which you find in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. And this looks a great deal like what would become part of what we now know as the scientific method. The point was that faith and science worked together to benefit people. If we try to study God's creation without taking God into account, we either act out of ignorance or deliberate rebellion. The Great Awakening that is advancing across the nation and the world currently focuses on political and social systems. Yet it must be permitted into the classroom and the science laboratory as well. The awakening must touch all areas of life, or it is not an awakening at all. Just another engine sputter on the way to a full start awakening. Pray for the Great Awakening. No king but Jesus. Independence forever. That's the Rankin Report for Sunday, August the 3rd, 2025. Please keep the nation in prayer as we go through this difficult time. Thank you for watching. God bless you and have a great day.